Operations Committee, and Deborah attended. It was something that had begun long before. It went to the governing board, and the Operations Committee determined that originally years before when it came to Atherton, because at first they decided they didn't know how to separate it from their general fund. They didn't understand the idea of establishing separate trust accounts. At this point in time, they felt that if they had control of it through trust accounts, which they now understood that they could establish, they would have better transparency by establishing their own trust accounts, would be able to oversee the money better, and then would be able to report it to the town, thus have a double check and balance by them overseeing the funds and have a reporting obligation to the town through the trust account.
And so this has been a process. This has been a process over the last, what, couple of 3 months, the Operations Committee?
No, actually, the Operations Committee has taken it up for almost 8 to 10 months, but Atherton has not had anybody sitting on that board.
Yes, they've been looking at it for a long time.
And had the
but
Operations
the governing board
Committee
knew nothing about it until.
And so they just sprung it on you guys.
Yes.
And okay, here it is. So vote.
Yes.
That seems.
We didn't know about it until like 2 days before.
Well, anyway, you're still researching it.
Sounds like the trash board.
It's really.
And it was between council meetings.
Well, I'm just going to go on record that I think that this is the wrong thing to do. I want us to do everything we can in our power to get it back to us. Councilmember Carlson's request to have the county do an accounting and a spreadsheet analysis of, you know, what happens when they take our tax money and how much they skim off the top and what is left. I want to understand that because nobody knows. Supposedly $750,000 a year is being thrown off in excess funds. That's nothing, that's not a small amount. I mean, that's a lot of money to kind of account for. So I think that we need to kind of figure that out. So
that was all sent by Anne Marie Despain in a report. I think it's 0.32 cents per $1,000.
No, I understand the 3.2 cents per $1,000. I understand that. But the county keeps some money of that. We don't get the whole amount back.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a comment? I don't know if this is relevant or not, but somebody said to me, I don't remember who it was, that the money was safer in a trust account because the state can come in, like they've done once before, and take our money, but they couldn't take it out of the trust account.
No,
that's the opposite.
I don't know whether that's the case.
Mr. Mayor, that's actually the
opposite.
That's exactly backwards because all county officers are sub-entities of the state of California, all of them. Cities are outside the sphere of influence of the state. And when the state of California clawed back money, VLF and other monies that they pulled back, it's been the counties that suffered the most because all they have to do is pass a law and say give us back the money. Now trust accounts more difficult, but again they just have to pass a law that says give us all the money you have in trust accounts, and because a county is nothing more than an arm of the state of California. So, in that sense, there are some higher risks, but there are some, because of the JPA and the way that money is looked at, there's control issues as well for both sides.
I'm not in it. Okay. Any other questions on the city manager's report? Okay.
I just wanted to point out that the police division has been really busy. I guess you indicate that there, in the month of May, 903 home security checks. That's a lot of home security checks. And what I wanted to ask the chief was that individual homes, 900 homes, or was that 1 or 2 homes multiple times?
It could have been some homes multiple times,
yeah.
But pretty much individual homes.
I mean, that's home security vacation checks. I mean, our police force really does a good job for our residents. It's a nice feeling to know that you're protected. So I have no other comments. Thank you for the report.
Okay. Next up is there's no community organization roundtable reports. So
consent calendar. Now, the consent calendar, each of the council members as well as members of the public can go ahead and pull any items number 8 through 19 for discussion. So do I have any consent items for discussion or comment? So why don't we start with Elizabeth?
In the minutes, I just have a couple of corrections, additions that I didn't have time to talk to the city manager about that I'd like to make. And then I'd like to pull item number 13, item number 15 from the consent calendar.
That's it? Okay. Jim?
Number 17.
Jerry? Kathy?
Number 18?
Okay. I'll pull 20, just for good measure.
20 is not mine.
Oh, sorry.
That's a
Sorry,
vote.
I had it entered wrong in my book, sorry, my mistake.
It's just keeping on your toes.
Okay, any items from the public? The public can pull any item, don't pull 14 because it's already been eliminated.
We're removing item 10, or we're pulling item 10. Okay, pulling item 10.
Pulling item 10? Oh, okay, all right, so item 10 has been removed. Okay. All right, I also have a comment on the minutes, so why don't we start there? With the minutes, what comment do you have? Is it pertinent or is it a question? Elizabeth?
You know, since the minutes are kind of a written history, I just kind of wanted to add something on page 7 of 12 that I said about the tennis courts. It's the second paragraph up. I just need to want to add. I also noted that the bid to resurface the courts, the 2 courts, was only going to cost $15,000, not the $350,000, and I recommended that. So that seemed to have been lost. And then on page 11 or 12, in my comments, I said Vice Mayor Lewis is not opposed to looking into it, but I have concerns about changing to a charter city and continue on, and that's it.
Okay, my comments are also on 8 with regards to the tennis courts. And it's more of a follow-up to the city manager and staff. It says, in fact, this is typical of some of our minutes. It says that somebody asked for some additional information. So in this case here, it says, and I'm sorry that Alan is gone, because he could answer it right here. Information on how much the tennis pro makes and what percentage the town receives from these. And so, where are we on that?
I'll get back to you.
Okay. That would be important information to know to approve that item. Okay, so I have no other comments on the minutes. So, do we want to approve all items on the consent calendar, including the minutes? So we have a motion for that, and then we still have the other items pulled, and we're going to go over those.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar except for items 10, which has been pulled, or deleted, item technically pulled, 10 pulled, 13, item 15 has been pulled, item 17, and item 18. All the rest I move to approve.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. So now we're going through the rest of the items. So the first one that has been pulled is item 13. Elizabeth, that's yours.
You want to start with item 10?
Yeah, I want to start with item 10. Staff.
Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Mike Kashiwagi, take that report.
I actually wanted to pull the item to add some language to the motion. I recommend that we appropriate funds from the general fund building division to cover the cost of this update to the drainage and grading plan. The The building department has far exceeded its revenue projections for this year, and so there's plenty of funds available to cover this cost. So the motion would be approve the selection of BKF engineers for grading and drainage criteria update and authorize the city manager to execute an agreement in the amount not to exceed $74,432 and appropriate funds in the general fund building department for the said amount.
You can have questions. I've got a question on the motion here, not the motion per se, but have we found out who that one representative is who was in the development community and whether or not it's the same person all the time?
It is,
And can we also start showing where we have some sort of ranking of selecting people? The rankings need to be included in the pack, please. So if we could talk about who the development community person was and what the selection criteria for said person might be.
the representative was not an Atherton resident, if that answers your question.
Well, it's, okay.
And we'll start ranking them from now.
And what's the selection criteria for the non-Atherton resident or other community
And
member?
Mike, answer that.
The representative, he's actually works for one of the consulting engineers that does a lot of work in Atherton. And we asked him to be part of the committee because they have a lot of experience working with the current grading and drainage standards and know some of the good, and some of the not so good. And so we really wanted to have a user be part of the selection committee.
So do you normally rotate who you pick? You pick like a specialist in the field? Is that what you do?
Yes, I mean, the engineer that was part of the committee, he's done a specialist, but he's a licensed civil engineer with a lot of experience applying the standards. And so we don't really rotate it. We don't really have a lot of these RFPs. But whenever we do have an RFP, in addition to town staff, we also like to involve stakeholders to be part of the selection committee.
Okay, great, thank you.
I just have a question for Deborah. So it's okay to take the building revenue funds and put it into public works?
Sure.
This project is related to the building department specifications, so it's appropriate to use building funds for that upgrade.
Okay. Do we have a motion to, do we have a motion to approve this item? Oh, public comments on this? Okay, seeing none?
So moved.
All right. So, all right, all in favor? All right, okay, moving on. Now we're on 13.
So I pulled this just for some more discussion. It just seems to me that we keep approving more and more money to be spent on the library project, and there just seems to be so much more controversy swirling around the library project, and especially the library project going to the park, that the LSA contract now is up to $186,000. And they're just, so I just wanted to open it up for public comment and for council comment. I personally am opposed to authorizing any more money to be spent.
Any other council comments on this?
Yeah, I had a couple of comments as well. The reasons given for the increases, one was that the number of comments requiring responses was greater than anticipated. I wonder if the staff member can tell us, give us a little more insight on that. I would have expected that the staff would have told LSA that this is something that is controversial and expect a lot of comments, but apparently they got more than expected.
Lisa, you have anything to say?
I think the controversy on the issue came up a little later through the process, but it's not just the number of comments, but it's the depth of the comments. we typically receive comment letters that are 1 and 2 pages long, maybe have 4 or 5 comments on them. I mean, you've seen the document, there were a significant amount of comments that they were required to respond to. We wanted to also make sure that we responded to those thoroughly, given the issues at hand. So it was beyond what they had anticipated in the beginning of the process. Neil and I have worked numerous controversial projects in other communities, and I would say that this is kind of beyond what we've seen in those as well. The
other question that's maybe kind of related is, they had to do additional traffic studies, transportation, circulation, and parking. Why aren't those traffic studies done to a full extent in the draft EIR?
I'm not sure about this specific intersection, why it wasn't analyzed, but they did communicate with staff, Mike Hashawagi and Neil Martin, on which intersections should be analyzed, and so they went with that advice. Through the comment process, this particular intersection was added in the alternative section to have that additional information.
Now, I remember in the draft EIR, the comment pertaining to the Fair Oaks site, they said the traffic on Watkins would be the same impact if the library was located on Fair Oaks as it would in the park. And I raised a question in my mind, certainly, that it just didn't seem logical that you would have the same kind of traffic circulation and same kind of traffic patterns if the library is over here on Fair Oaks versus over here on Park. So it seemed to me that the draft EIR was kind of took shortcuts in some of the answers, and finally had to come around and get the right, do more of analysis on these things, which I personally think should have been in the draft EIR.
Mr. Mayor, can I maybe shed some light? This is a little bit abnormal in terms of the process, because we're the applicant and we're the city local agency. Most of the time it's like Facebook, an outside entity has a project and comes in. This happens all the time, virtually almost every EIR I've ever seen, there are always money overruns. The difference is, in those cases, you go to the developer and you say, look, it was an estimate, you got to pony up some more money. So you don't see it. In this case, you're seeing it because it's the EIR that we're doing for ourselves, essentially using library funds, but the library funds are our funds. And so since we own the project, we own the property, it's really, you're seeing it because it's our money. And while I appreciate Councilmember Lewis's comments, please understand, this is just like every other EIR. If you don't pay them the extra money to respond to the comments that the citizens brought forth, the EIR is invalid, insufficient, and the project is in trouble. And you've wasted an awful lot of money. So, I mean, it seems kind of counterintuitive because usually this is outside developer money coming in and nobody pays attention to it. But in this case, it's the left hand and the right hand passing money back and forth.
Any other council comments? Okay, public comments?
Charles Masala, 33 Emmeline. And I'll just comment a little bit on what Councilmember Lewis said earlier as far as the funds. The timing with the JPA keeping a surplus right now, it just doesn't look good. And it should have been discussed. You guys should vote on it, let the JPA know what should be put on the agenda so that
Charles, is this pertaining to the LSA?
Yes, it is.
Okay, because it sounds like it's starting out with the previous discussion with regards to the library funds.
Well, it relates
Well, let's
to
try
that.
and stay on topic. You
Okay.
can start the
You're
3 minutes
spending-
again if you would, please. Give him the full 3 minutes.
You're spending money here that it seems that there's a need to keep spending money for the library and the park. And if the JPA start keeping the surplus, well, they start spending the money without you knowing about it. So that's a good reason, I believe, to ask them to allow you to keep the funds, the surplus funds, so you can monitor them better. And Atherton's really the only city in the JPA that has that, so these other members may not have realized the impact or the dynamics in the town. Therefore, I think if there's going to be a lot more expenditures, why not hold on to the money here so you can have a better purse string grab on it. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close public comments on this item. Bring it back to council. Any other questions from council or comments? Can I have a motion on item number 13?
I move that we approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Abstain.
Okay. 3, 1, and 1. Item 15, Elizabeth.
So I pulled this, I spoke with city manager about, our interim city manager, Teresa, about this earlier, and basically it's the same salary schedule that we've approved in the past, and we have to do this on an annual basis. The only thing is that the number in there that is allocated for the potential new city manager, full-time permanent city manager, is lower than, I think, 4 of the existing department heads here in town. And I have a philosophical, and I think it's really spelled out in comparable cities where your chief operating officer of your company needs to be compensated more than your other salespeople or finance director. And so I think that we need to look at that and readjust it. I know that you may know that we're going out and doing interviews for a new permanent city manager, and at this point none have been hired, and the thought is that maybe we need to re-look at that compensation package. So I wanted to bring it back to council and to the public to be more aware of that and to have comments about what you think of it.
I've got a comment on it. First off, normally the chief sales officer is the most highly compensated person in the company, not the CEO. Secondly, the CEO of this town has an unusual perk that no other town has. That's called a house. It's in the park. It's a 4,000 square foot or more house that the town takes care of, and he gets that rent-free, and he gets that tax-free because he's also the supervisor of the town. People of the park. So he also, so that perk, whether one can argue whether or not it's, living there in the park, whether that's worthwhile. An average home in Atherton is renting for anywhere from 5 to, on this side of town, I realize there's an other side of town, but on this side of the railroad tracks, where I live, okay? On this side of the railroad tracks, things are, 5 to 7, maybe even higher, $1,000 a month. At $160,000 is the top pay for a city manager. You add in the 30, or actually you add substantially more than that. He's going to be paid at $225,000, $220,000. The most recent hire in Menlo Park is paid. I've got the exact number here. They were looking at paying him $190,000. Yet they ended up paying him something like $194,000. Similarly, East Palo Alto is looking for a new city manager, and they're in the mid-190s as well. So I don't think that the number per se is low. It may have a situation if a local candidate or somebody who already had a home and did not want to physically move down here. Is that a benefit to them? No. In those cases, then we would need to have a discussion amongst the council. But I don't think that the rate with the house is an inappropriate amount. So that's my comment. Any other council comments? Any public comments? Any chief sales officers out there like to tell us what they're going in? Okay, yeah, you were a sales guy, they told me that the other day.
I've been the president in one company, a CEO in another company. And typically the senior salesperson and some of the direct salespeople made more money than I did. And my chief technical officer made more money than I did. And there's good reasons for that. And I think the CEOs and the presidents in this country have to get over it.
Amen on that.
I appreciate that input, thank you.
I would just say, Bill, the vice president of sales, many times in the companies I worked, made more money than I did, but he made it on commission. If he didn't perform, he didn't make much money, and that's fine. That's the, you know, we don't have the same situation. Right?
So I'll bring it back to council, since there's no additional public comments. So any other council comments?
I just want to say that if the house was not part of the package, then would the council be open to adjusting it accordingly? Because sometimes, you know, people may not want to live in the house at the park.
That would be a consideration the council would have to do, but yeah, definitely.
And Mr. Mayor, since that's not on the agenda tonight, we'll have to wait until somebody comes in and
Thank you very
answers
much.
that question.
Okay, thank you very much. So can we have a motion then on item 15?
I move we approve item 15.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, sorry, I lost my page here.
Number
17, Jim.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and of course, you know, we all like money, and this foundation, apparently, its purpose is to raise money. It's got quite a lot of people on it, some of whom I know, some of whom I don't. Some of them, most of them seem to be Atherton residents, at least one of them is not an Atherton resident. And so, while I certainly hope that we can raise a lot of money, this organization last year raised $1,800, which even in our penurious state here in the town, isn't a whole lot of money. So I would like to get a feel, maybe somebody can ask this organization, how much money are they trying to raise this year? And if it's only $1,800, then my feeling is probably not worth bothering about. But if we can get them to raise, you know, a lot more money for the police department, and we're allowed to determine what that money should be used for in the police department, then I would be very supportive. But I'm puzzled that at least one person there is not an Atherton resident. I'm not quite sure why he's in this group. It's a volunteer group, so there's not much I can do about it. But these are my comments.
My only comment, I had a comment on it as well, was that I understand that number one, the police department identifies needs and creates a wish list for equipment, materials, and services that is not funded within the town's approved budget. Would it be possible, Chief, that we get shared, that you would be willing to share that wish list with us? It should be something that we should have actually looked at if it's that important when we were doing the budget process. So is it possible that we can see that list?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
I should note, item 9 on page 3 requires council approval for any donations.
No, it's written there. And we also need to rework the policy for accepting donations, and that was one of the things that came out of the purchasing policy. Any other comments from the council? Okay, any comments from the public on the foundation that would make donations, collect money to make donations to the police? Please step up to the,
Honorable Mayor, Council, I am Herb Luckner, 89 Virginia Lane. I am the director of the Atherton Police Foundation and its CFO. I did not come prepared to address in any depth Councilman Nobby's question. I think that we would be very pleased to address the council on our status and our plans. and on our finances, since that is all public domain information. But I will try as best I can within whatever time you will give me to address questions you have time to discuss.
Are there any questions? Well, we appreciate it. If we're asking you questions, there's no time limit on that.
I might volunteer one that I probably can get in 2 or 3 minutes, and it is, I think, germane to Councilman Davi's question. The foundation was formed as a result of groups concerned about the structural deficit of the budget, even with the inclusion of the parcel tax. And it was formed to provide another option for soliciting funds that would help preserve the city services that might be impacted by this deficit. And we are the police foundation because of our particular priority for the police department and the safety of the community. Most of last year was spent getting our organization done, getting our approvals for 501c3, and doing some preliminary informal surveys of the solicitation potential for this project. We were ready to go out for general solicitation based on wish lists that the police department had developed, but we put any plans for general solicitation on hold pending the outcome of the task force on the city center. First of all, we did not want to be competing with the city center for funding. And secondly, we wanted to see if there was a cooperative role that we could play with them in terms of addressing some of the city center's police department needs as a subset and in cooperation with the town task force. I've forgotten its formal name.
Do town tests.
Right. And right now, before we can approach anybody on soliciting money, we have to have a further definition of what the building requirements are and the space, and we're waiting on that. And that's why we are maintaining a relatively low profile, but we want to put procedures in place that are acceptable to the town for the time when we can solicit funds that might be helpful.
Are you through? Are you through?
I can continue if you wish.
Well, if you have anything else, and then I think some of the council members may have some additional questions.
I would be happy to try to field them. I did not bring any
No, I
detail
understand,
with me.
whatever you can do. So did you have anything you wanted to add before we have you withstand a barrage of questioning?
Nothing. I will perhaps recoup after I hear the questions.
Okay.
Well, Jim did ask another question. Why is a former police chief who is not an Atherton resident a member of this committee?
When we decided to try to do something for the police force, because of personal relationships with Glenn Nielsen, who has been an Atherton policeman since he was an Explorer Scout, we thought that he would be a wealth of knowledge in helping us put together and get a handle on the needs of the department, its culture, its history, the reaction, problems, and accomplishments of the department over years. So he was on the organizing committee and is also on the board. It is not expected that he will continue to be on the board of directors as the foundation begins to function. But he has been very helpful and a good information source on things that other of our group just simply not expert on or aware of.
Thank you. No questions.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We will be very happy to entertain a formal meeting and presentation when we feel we're ready to go and you want to have it.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Are there any public comments on this item? Nope. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close. Can we have a motion on item?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Aye. Okay, number 18.
I asked that be removed.
Right.
Just a quick question. Could you tell me, we've removed the town arborist and public works specialist, but we do have a contractual town arborist in essence. Why is that person not on this?
That person would fall under consultant.
Okay. And is that also true of the code enforcement officer?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I need to know. I make a motion to approve item 18.
Second.
Should we ask if the
Oh,
public?
sorry.
Any public comment, or any other council comments? Any public comments? Bring it back to council. Any further last minute comments? May we have the motion?
I move to approve item 18.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That concludes our consent calendar. Now we move to the public hearing section. Item number 20, first reading of the introduction of the city manager's ordinance to amend the chapter 2.12, establishing a city manager position description. Written by City Attorney Bill Connors. Bill, would you like to walk us through this?
Well, Mr. Mayor, quite simply, the ordinance that was on the books had a number of interesting provisions, some of which were of questionable constitutionality and would be hard to enforce. I mean, one of the provisions had the city manager being assigned as essentially the department head for every department, including some that require a license that he didn't have, or she wouldn't have. And so what I did is I went through and basically pulled out essential functions that most cities give to their, especially general law cities, give to their city managers. And I used 2 or 3 examples. I believe I used Carmel and 2 others, I'm not exactly sure, and I ended up kind of shuffling them together, picking out the ones that seemed to be most lucidly written and clear and easy to understand. And there was no real agenda on my part other than